If you're an architect or interior designer, chances are you've made at least one of these mistakes. Honestly, I definitely have, quite a few times. These aren't bad design ideas, they're workflow problems. Little things that creep into drawings and quietly impact clarity, accuracy, and presentation. In this video, I'm going to walk through 5 common mistakes I see and make all the time in plans, interiors, and presentations, and show you how to fix them using Rayon. But before we get into it, if you want to follow along or try this workflow for yourself, there's a link in the description where you can create a free Rayon account. This first one is a classic. Doors drawn too small or incorrectly, furniture too big, people looking 7 feet tall. Most of the time this comes from downloading random blocks off the internet. I had a full library of them at architecture school. Rayon's block library fixes this by giving you properly scaled blocks, and even better, they also give you multiple views, top, front, and side, all in one place. This is particularly useful when working across plans and sections, so you can ensure that the blocks show correctly and align to each drawing. Now, Rayon has a vast block library, and we're talking hundreds, thousands of blocks available to you. You've got lots of different options here where you can explore the library on the left-hand side, and you've got access to bathroom layouts, bedroom layouts, various different blocks. Any block that you could possibly think of, Rayon has it there in their library. And this is really useful because you can scroll through and find any type of block you're looking for, kitchen appliances, kitchen accessories, to start populating your floor plans in an instant there and then. So what you want to do is, if you find a particular item, you can drag and drop it into your workspace. You can then see that you can rotate, you can shift it, you can then start to mirror it and play around with it until you're comfortable with how you want it in your layout. Equally, you can also select the block and see alternative views. So you've got a front view, side view, and top view. So when you're working across plans, sections, elevations, you can switch between those views to make sure that your drawings align. Now you'll see here you've got lots of different options for even potential full bedroom layouts. So you can see here we've got a bed, wardrobe, and desk space already fully configured, which you can then work into your floor plan. Now alternatively, you can look for parametric blocks. And in this case, you can type it into the top here, where you can search for a particular item that will have a parametric icon in the top left corner. And you can see here that these parametric blocks, when you drag and drop them in, let's take this corner sofa for example, they have these toggles that you can essentially push and pull, and they'll expand and contract without actually distorting or affecting the geometry of the block. So as you can see here, you can push and pull it if you want to have certain elements that are longer or shorter or wider or deeper. It gives you that flexibility. Likewise, if you have certain elements like a dining room table that you want to add more chairs to, you can push and pull these. Now for this particular drawing, this is the kind of set of blocks that I would like to use, and I'm going to start populating the drawings. Now these are really great for also if you want to make some edits and make some changes, you can double click into them, start deleting certain elements or moving certain cupboards or hobs or sinks around to kind of fit your layout as you please. Alternatively, and this is where it gets pretty exciting, if you have a particular block, like a piece of furniture, in this case this bright orange sofa that caught my eye, you can bring it into the software. You can then do a generative AI block. So you use a tool called Generate Product, which you'll see you can select the image, you can use selected image using the AI panel, head down to Tools, select Generate Product, and you'll see it will create a block of that image. So it will generate a 3-sided block, top, down, side, and front view of that particular sofa, and it will also generate it to scale, which is really impressive. And you can see here we've got this sofa now in our workspace, which we can pull into our drawings and have them across our floor plan sections and elevations, and it will all align and read together. You can also import DWGs at scale or generate a block using AI if you need something custom. Correct proportions instantly, make drawings feel more professional. The second mistake, which often leads from poor CAD block proportions, are inefficient layouts. Rooms that almost work, circulation spaces that feel awkward, spaces that don't feel proportionate. So take this layout as an example. We're going to start dissecting this and make it a little bit more efficient. Now you can see here the way that this is composed, that you have this bedroom on the left-hand side, which doesn't really work too well next to this window. And then you've got the kitchen unit on the right-hand side, which isn't awful, but I think it could be rearranged slightly better, where you have a bit more privacy in the bedroom, because currently that bedroom is quite exposed to that kitchen living space and it's right next to the front door, which isn't ideal. We could also use this long back wall for some storage. We could build in some storage here with some wardrobes and maybe a feature to the living space. So potentially I think we could swap around the bedroom and the kitchen to make it a little bit more of an efficient space. And then what we could have as a feature, we could have a kind of a semi-permeable barrier that creates some kind of privacy between the bedroom and living space. So if we pull the bedroom up to this corner here and swivel this kitchen round into this corner, then we can have potentially that window above the kitchen unit, so above the sink. We'll then bring the door around here so you can access the door, the bathroom off the bedroom, and pull these wardrobes away, so then maybe we could have a low level wall with some kind of seating in that kitchen space. You're kind of compartmentalizing that kitchen space as its own space, with then a division here for the living and sleeping area. Now pulling the sofa back into this corner, we could then have some storage that runs along this back wall, as I've mentioned, and then these wardrobes could almost become a semi-permeable barrier or kind of privacy space between the bedroom and the living space, so that you can have maybe a TV along here. We could pull that wall out a little bit further to give more privacy to the bedroom, as you can see here. And this now works a little bit better where we have essentially a living space with the outdoor seating area adjacent to it, with then the kitchen space having its own area. And then you have a bedroom that's kind of partitioned off, semi-partitioned off with those wardrobes. So it feels a little bit more efficient and much more improved layout. And zones are especially useful here. They help you to see what's oversized, what's tight, and what needs adjusting. And the key takeaway is that layouts should evolve quickly and not feel painful to change. In Rayon, you can move, rotate, cut and edit walls and layouts super easily, as you've seen. A lot of drawings fail not because of design, but because they're hard to read. Everything looks the same line weight, materials aren't clear, hierarchy is missing. This usually happens because styling is separate from drafting. In Rayon, drafting and styling happen together using the style panel. Take this floor plan. I know that we've exaggerated the line weights a little bit here just to show as a demonstration, but you can see here that the blocks are much stronger in the drawing, and we need to find a balance between the walls, the furniture, the hatches and textures in the background to make sure that the drawing is structured properly. Now in this case, we want to bring down the intensity of the blocks. We want to increase the thickness of the walls. To take this block, for example, you can double click into it. You can select the item and you'll have a style here on the right hand side which you can edit, and we're going to bring that right down to 0.2, so it's much softer in the drawing, even though it's still got a little bit of a darker edge, a thicker edge around the block. And we'll do the same here with this block here. We can change that to 0.2 as well if we wanted to keep it consistent, and you'll see that it's changed some of the blocks across the drawing, and that's because that is a saved style that is applied to each of these blocks. So if you change that style, it will change all of the blocks that have that style associated to it. Now some of these details in the walls that show in the kind of wall build-ups, we're going to select these elements and we're going to bring these down to maybe a 0.1 because we want them to be nice and subtle in the background. We don't want it to be strong at all. And then we can take the walls themselves and increase the stroke to maybe a 0.3. I mean, you can test the different thicknesses here to try and get it right, but I think a 0.3 or maybe even slightly thicker could work well. And you can see here it's starting to give the structure to the drawing. Now, if there are other elements in your drawing that you want to select multiple of the same style, what you can do is you can select the element, you can right click it, you can do select similar, same style, and you can see here all of those lines where we had that wall detail are now selected. I head over to the right hand side here, we can then change that stroke to a 0.1 to make sure that it's consistent throughout, and we can save that style by clicking save style and calling it the wall layer. We can do the same with zones and hatches that are applied to zones. If we select this floor finish here, we can adjust and drop the stroke to something quite light because we want it to make sure it's kind of in the background and not too strong, so maybe 50% works well. Likewise with this style here, we could then change that down to also a 50% opacity. We can adjust the walls slightly further to a 0.5 so it's a little bit stronger. Likewise with these internal walls. And all of a sudden we have a much stronger hierarchy to the drawing where we have the elements that we're cutting through are much stronger. So all of the wall elements that we're slicing through are much darker and thicker elements. We then got much softer elements in the background with the hatches that are a lot more subtle in the background. And then we have the blocks, the furniture, that have a 0.2 surrounding, so that's kind of the next hierarchy from the wall. So you've got that structure and hierarchy to the drawing, where the drawing is now reading much more clearly and it's much better structured. Now the finishing touch to this drawing, I think, is just going to be a bit of shadow. And in this case, we're just going to use the polyline to essentially draw a shape to indicate an area of shadow and maybe an area of where shadow is being casted in the floor plan. This will just be really simple and quite sketchy at this point, so we can simply draw this zone here and fill that with black, and then we'll drop the opacity right down to maybe even only 15%. Remove the stroke, and there we have a bit of a shadow. And we can save that as a style so that whenever we're building and adding any shadow to the floor plan, we can add that in. With a bit of work, you can arrive at something like this, which looks really great as a floor plan. The shadow adds that depth and that intrigue to the plan, a little bit more detail and three-dimensional quality. And now I think as a hierarchical drawing and the kind of composition with the line weights, it looks much better. And you can test styles live and save them in your style library. Good drawings aren't necessarily complicated, they're just intentional and clear. And you can see how you can manage that here in Rayon. Annotation is where the detail in the drawings is understood. Drawings should be annotated sufficiently so that anyone can pick them up and understand the detail. Where this can go wrong is if the annotations are not clear, not up to date, or the labels don't reflect the real information. And often the problem is that when you're jumping between softwares, there's two issues. You forget to update the text when drawings change, and number two is room areas change but labels don't. And this leads to tags slowly becoming incorrect. Rayon uses smart tags that stay linked to your drawings. And annotations that are not clear can look really messy. It can look something like this, where you've got a really poor hierarchy. In some cases, we've over annotated this so the drawing looks too complicated and too confusing. And so this needs a little bit of work. Now, the first thing that you can do is you can actually add annotations or build on your drawing if you'd like. You can add headers, leaders, you can add text, you can build into your annotations. And when you draw zones, you can have an automatic annotation added to that to indicate your square meter or square footage. You can also change the font of your text. You can make it much bolder or softer. And in this case, I think generally the text just needs to be managed slightly better. It's becoming too dominant in the drawing. So if we bring that down to a 0.1, this text now becomes much more of a kind of supplementary feature to your drawing, not the dominant thing. We can also adjust some of these titles here to bring it much smaller and centralize it a little bit better. Likewise with these annotations, if we double click into them, you can see that this text is probably ever so slightly too small. So we'll increase this to maybe 0.15 and make sure it's centered. Now there's some of these texts like the built-in wardrobe annotation and some of these elements here where you've got wall tags, door tags, and then you've got a bit of a call out. This built-in cooker, we probably don't need those annotations for a drawing at this scale. And so there's certain elements that we can kind of pull out and adjust and amend. And if double clicking into any of these elements, you can start adjusting them and amending them. Now, in addition, you can also start customizing your annotations and start bringing that graphic style through the annotations. So if we select this dimension, for example, we could select this element and change the color of that dimension text to red. And to give it a little bit of a red pop in our drawings, which looks, I think, really quite nice graphically. And so you can see here now the drawing is much clearer, it's much cleaner. We now have a consistency across the bathroom, kitchens, and studio spaces. And we can see here that you can also select on your zones and change the name of the zone, which has updated the name tag automatically. So it's already automatically updating, it's live with your model. So anything that you change, it will update live in your drawing. Likewise, if you wanted to push and pull some wall elements, you can see here, if you look at the room tag, it's adjusting as you push and pull the wall, which is really great, so it's live and working with your drawing. And we can do the same across all the other zones to make sure that they're all indicated as Studio 1, Kitchen 1, and Bathroom 1. Now, a benefit of these zones is that you can start building in properties and building in the metadata into this particular zone. So take this zone, for example, you can click then Zone Properties on the bottom right-hand side, and you can add your own categories. So we can add maybe a property which indicates a floor finish, which you can see here. You can change the type, you can change the format, if you wanted to add volume or area, for example. Click save, and then we can type in a timber floor finish if we wanted to. So then now all of a sudden we have properties that are attached to that zone. And if we ever want to pull that information out in a table, it comes out with the drawing. Likewise with, if we wanted to add a floor finish to the kitchen, we could do that as a tiling. And you can obviously add your own particular type of tiling or whatever it might be, if it's a particular brand or if it's a particular scale or size. So now if we just head over and finish up this drawing by turning on our shadows, you can see that we have now a much better hierarchy to the drawing. The annotations don't feel too strong. They're supplementing the drawing, adding the detail required without overbearing and overtaking the drawing. And with that hint of red, I think it works really nicely, as you can see on the dimensions. This means that your drawings stay accurate as they evolve. Less manual checking, fewer mistakes, more confidence in what you're presenting. And I think that's really important. And of course, AI is now at the tip of everyone's tongues, and it is now a mistake not to use it in my eyes. If you're not using AI in any of your workflow, you're making your life harder than it needs to be. But I must be clear, AI shouldn't replace design thinking, but it should absolutely support it. Now, the way that AI works in Rayon is through the AI chat on the panel on the left-hand side. If you open up the AI panel, you can see here that you've got various different options of adding your content. So you can add a file or you can add a screenshot. In this case, let's add a screenshot of our space. We're just going to grab the floor plan, which you can see drops into our prompt. You can then click any of these tools that are available to you. You could do image tracing, you could do axonometric, for example. And if we generate an axonometric, you'll be able to see how you can visualize this space in 3 dimensions. And as it thinks it through, it will create something really quite compelling like this, which I think is really brilliant as a really kind of quick ideation and a visualization tool to help you understand your space and how you're designing the space. You can then reuse that image. You can then maybe style that image into a clay model. I particularly like the clay model feature here. We can send that off and it will come out with something like this, which I think is a really great addition to a presentation set if you wanted to build your presentation set with some axonometrics or some 3D views as part of your presentation. And if you wanted to include that particular image in your presentation, all you have to do is click insert image and it will bring it into your canvas. And then if you wanted to work into that image to add a bit more of your own style and your own touch and want to prompt it further, you can select that image, head to the panel again, use selected image, and then maybe let's prompt it to make it blue, for example, just as an example. And you can see here that it will come out and it will generate it as blue, as a particular style. Now, if you wanted to, you could even just create a style of your floor plan. If you wanted to render it, or if you wanted to create a sketch version of the floor plan. In this case, let's try and prompt it to render this floor plan. And you'll be able to explore different material finishes, different floor finishes if you'd want. And you can see here that it creates something really quite compelling, and it actually uses and includes your annotation as part of that. And so I think it shows, for example, in this case, it shows lighting, it shows where light's coming into the room from the windows. And this is really compelling. The key is that AI lives inside the drawing environment. No exporting, no copy and pasting. It's fast, it's visual, and surprisingly powerful, as you've seen. I hope that by using these tools and workflows, these mistakes will no longer appear in your drawings, or at least reduce them. The key to architecture drawing, in my eyes, is this: clean layouts, correct scale, and clear graphics. They're very small changes, but a big difference. I've been using Rayon to solve these exact problems, and it's completely changed how I draw and present work. You can explore Rayon for free by using the link in the description, along with the access to the drawings used in this tutorial. Take what's useful, try it in your own workflow, and I'll see you in the next one.